Well, hello everybody. Kevin Mansour here, and I promised you a video, and I do my best not to break my promises. Today we're going into the office that many people have seen, I suppose, but I don't ever think I've given a full tour to anybody and explained what the pieces are. And the pieces really are where the value of my office is to me personally. It is not a question of what they necessarily look like, it's what they mean. So just starting here right away, you will see on the door, those are the covers of my current two projects, The Last Sundancer. Up here we have The Last Sundancer Part 1. Down here we have The Last Sundancer Part 2. Those are the actual covers. Couple small tweaks I need to make to them, but nothing you would visually notice. Honestly, the biggest thing I need to do is enlarge the text where it says Part 1 and Part 2 so it's clear, because in hand the pictures are quite different, but in a video like this they really don't show very different. Those pictures are meaningful to the plot, so I don't want to change them, and I love the covers, so very pleased with those. So I put those there to remind me of why I'm walking into my office. So those will change depending on what project I'm working on or my main focus at the time. Right now it's The Last Sundancer. So every time I go in, there's no question why I'm there. I'm not going in to play. I might be going in to work on other aspects of the business, but when I write, that's the project I'm typically writing. So here we go. Not used to this camera thing, so I apologize if I'm a little bit weird with it. Closet doors here. Those post-it notes are my children. I didn't ask them if I could put them in here, so I covered them up real quick. Don't like to do that without their permission, but whatever. George the giraffe. You'll see if you were in our house, in our yard, there's a lot of George the giraffes. Not sure why, but we just like giraffes. George, though, is a character in a children's series I'm working on, mostly for my granddaughter. I'll make it to the world, when I get to that point, but it's just something that kind of work on for fun. Down here we have Kitty. Kitty, if you read my first trilogy, the 4-book trilogy, which is still my claim to fame, 4-book trilogy. I mean, who does that? Kitty is in book 4. So that's why Kitty is there. That's actually just a random thing. It was just something to do some weekend to build that. Over here is a whiteboard. This is actually whiteboard sticky tape, really. It's just a roll-on whiteboard you can put on any surface. Sticks like a post-it note, actually. But I just sometimes need to write something real quick. I don't think there's any spoilers on there. At the top, there's a couple books I plan to write. Keyword being planned doesn't mean it's going to happen. Echoes of Eldonia, that's the Last Sundancer series. That's the series name. Those are future books. Sundancer 1 is basically done. It will need some tweaks when I finish Sundancer 2. Sundancer 2 is, I think I'm on chapter 33 or like 36, so it's getting kind of intense in that sense. Bonus chapter, that's just something I'm playing with. So you on the email list, if you read the Sundancer series, that's a bonus chapter. There's a part in the book where a character walks into a situation and that situation isn't in the book. It's just the result of it comes out. But I'm writing that as a additional chapter, sort of bonus material, so I can give you guys something extra and you can see what happened in there, because it's actually a pretty exciting chapter. This corner here is what I might call my family corner, but it's a little more detailed than that. So you'll see up here, this is it's a 5D diamond painting that we did. All those little beads, some of you know exactly what that is. Some of you are scratching your head, but those literally are thousands of beads that were put on individually. That's Anubis, the god of war in Egyptian mythology. So Egypt, my father was born in Egypt. My mother in South Dakota, so kind of a strange matchup there. But so there's a lot of Egyptian history in in our lives. This camel here came from my father's camel collection when he died. There were probably 200 camels, and we distributed them into the community of the town they were in. All his friends came over and took one, but we all took one as family members first, and this is the one I took. This is Aki. He has a name. Aki is short for Akhenaten. Akhenaten was a pharaoh in the Amarna period of Egypt, and my family has a tie to the Amarna period and to the pharaoh Akhenaten. Loose tie, possibly even a fictitious tie, but in family history it exists. But when history comes down from uncles, you don't always know which is true and what isn't. So just some more random pieces that I probably took from my father. Down there, that's Drago. Drago is a character in the children's book series with George the Giraffe. This tea cart, it's a bar cart. It's from about 1905. It came from my mother's. My mother passed away last October, and this was one of the pieces I selected to keep. When a parent passes away, everything seems important, but you can't keep everything. So you keep the one that gives you the memory of what it was. So this is a 1905 tea cart, perfect condition. It is worth a little bit of money, probably $400 or $500, but that's not why it's here. It's not why I kept it. I kept it because it's a memory. On top, you'll see this book, Shepherd's Hotel. That book, my grandfather is in. He gets a couple paragraphs because he was Egyptian and he lived there and worked there, and he had a store there, and that store had some historical significance to it. Inside here, this is just bits and pieces of history. The postcards like this, these are actual pictures of an old family art collection from the Amarna period. That's that connection I referenced to you. Some random pieces of Egyptian stuff, an old business card of my father's. The jewelry is just some costume jewelry that was my mother's. These were pieces that had a memory to me, like this little watch down here, this necklace piece. I just remembered them very well from life, so I kept those. Down here, this is actually my grandfather's lantern. My grandfather on my mother's side, this was the lantern he took out into the fields with him in South Dakota when he was probably working on a tractor late at night or doing whatever he needed light for. That was his. I did add the electric light, obviously, just for fun. But I never knew that grandfather, so that lantern is probably 140 years old, maybe. Over here, I have some books, Mysteries of Mankind, Mysterious Places, and Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. I call those my muse books, my imagination books. They're fun just to flip through because when I'm writing fiction, those books just spark my imagination. You don't really use anything from them. I do use historical stuff in my books, but not necessarily anything from here. Again, if you've read the Trinitarian Knights collection, in book 2, there is a reference to Adolf Hitler's bunker in Antarctica. Well, that just comes from the urban legend that Hitler moved to Antarctica after World War II. It's just a playful thing. But in that book, there's also a moment when a child is outside on Antarctica and he looks down and he sees what is basically a gold swastika. And he looks at it and then gets covered in snow. That is actually a true thing from the sense that Germany tried to claim Antarctica during the war. And they did that by flying over it and dropping metal swastikas all over it. That was their attempt to say, oh, this is ours. So that's kind of why that's there. This piece up here is kind of fun. That is a rivet. It's the Golden Gate Bridge there. I grew up in Santa Rosa, not too far from San Francisco. That is an original rivet from the original Golden Gate Bridge. So when they built the bridge, they riveted the entire thing together from end to end. That takes years back then. So now when they get to the end, technology had changed and they had to start back at the beginning and replace every rivet on that bridge with a bolt. And so that is one of the original ones. It's been brass plated, I suspect. So over here, we start to get into a little bit more into my mind. Moo is a character in that children's series. Moo is the one who started the children's series. Moo was a cow lying alone in the field, and I drove by him on the freeway, and he lifted his head and watched me drive by. That was it. He's been in my head ever since, and he's telling me stories all the time. Over here we have more George the Giraffes. This is a family. They're kind of watching me write and stuff. These are vinyl wall decals. We have another business, my wife and I, where we make wall verses for walls, motivational quotes, funny sayings, scripture quotes, whatever people want, basically. We have about 1,200 designs. We sell those on Amazon, eBay, Walmart. Back here, hiding behind this pony plant, you've got Duke. Duke's the hero of books 1, 2, 3, and 4 of my series. I shouldn't say the hero. He's not the main protagonist, but to be honest, he's my favorite character. Don't tell anyone else. This little sign my wife gave me, and you want to talk about something being true. If you can read that. If you see me talking to myself, move along. We're having a team meeting. That's true. That's just flat out true. I don't know how it is for other writers. I talk to myself nonstop, absolutely nonstop. I'm talking to myself, my characters, whatever. This piece of furniture actually was an old table. I cut it in half, turned it into this bookshelf. I do a lot of DIY projects, and sometimes people think, well, you're not working, you're doing this, you're doing that. Goodness no, there is no better place to solve a plot twist than with a palm sander and a piece of wood. I go out there, I sand for an hour, and got my headphones on, and I just kind of disappear into that vibration, and my mind works, and I solve problems. I should tell you the story of Walmart someday. That was kind of fun. These are mostly my books down there, just some storage and some fiction books that I read. Nothing else terribly different down there. Over here, we start to get, again, as you get closer to my desk, we get into the more fun stuff. A Sasquatch, I think Bigfoot's cool. I don't think you can be a storyteller and not love Bigfoot. It's not a question of whether Bigfoot's real or isn't real, but what a story. I mean, just these urban legends are some of the best examples of storytelling you'll ever find in the world, because they have lived forever. They just keep going and going and going. And yes, you'll hear it here first. I have a whole series for Bigfoot in my head. Not the series people think that should be written, probably, but the series that I plan to write. This is my Zen elephant. Elephants, again, in the children's book, but I have a collection over here of Zen animals. There's another George the giraffe. There's a zebra back there. They are all in the story, but I think the Zen ones are fun, and they actually have those roles in the book. Here, these are random things. Another Moo, the giraffe, was a thing with my mother's death, actually, that's there. More pictures of my book cover. Again, I sometimes, I think you'll find my book covers tend to always have a depth to them, where something's, because I like the feeling of I'm being led into a story. When I want my covers, I want you to feel like you're being led somewhere, that it's going somewhere. You need to open up the book to get to that world. But for me, I need the same thing. I look at it and I'm like, okay, what's going on there? What's next? This is actually a fun position. That is a picture of my book cover that I sent to a reader who framed it and put it on their wall. So that's my little claim to fame there. So as we move up here, random stuff, maybe, not really. The Russian River Brewery near where I live actually had the best beer in the world about 10 years ago, rated that in a world beer competition, but it just reminds me of home. Now we're getting into the book. This is Jess. Jess is the primary protagonist in the first Last Sundancer book. That's just how I see him. And it just, looking at his face, I love the expression. There's a darkness to him. There's a pain in his face and a darkness at the same time. And in the book, he's trying to be heroic, but he's a person, and people struggle. But that's a great picture of him. A little note board that my wife gave me, actually, with some quotes for me about our relationship. Snoopy, or actually Woodstock, part of Snoopy. Snoopy was written in Santa Rosa, California, where I grew up. That's where Charles Schulz did most of his writing and lived. And so Snoopy, Woodstock, that whole series is just all over that town. Massive statues everywhere, a big Snoopy museum. So just a little bit of a thing. And Peanuts is fun for me. Peanuts reminds me, Charles Schulz tried to get a job with Disney, and Disney looked at his Peanuts characters and said, these aren't going to work. No one's going to read this. No one's going to like it. This isn't Disney quality. And of course, we all know that Peanuts went on for some very serious fame. This jigsaw puzzle, my wife and I do a lot of puzzles. Every once in a while, I find one worth saving, because this glares a little bit. Here, let's move around. The chair, the massive library, but it's holding back the water. And that just means a lot to me as a writer. Every book has a world in it. Every book has a story. And you don't know when you pull that book off the shelf what's behind it. What is the world? What's going to happen? And that's just kind of how I see that puzzle there. Going to back up a little bit here. So this is one of my two desks. I have two desks in my office. And this is that wall there. This is my serious work desk. And serious meaning I'm doing either website stuff or stuff for the Amazon business or something. I use the two monitors because I do a lot of cut and pasting, or I'm using one with instructions and the other monitor has what I'm working on. Above it's where it gets important. Here's a wall decal, like what we make, but that's a personal one. And then what happened? That, my friends, is the cure for writer's block for me every time. What happened next? And that's what I feel this little guy is asking me as he stares at me while I write, or this little guy over here. This is my representation of my average reader, so to speak. Just someone staring at me, asking me, and then what happened? And that's why he's there. He watches me. He critiques me. I sound insane. You walk by my office door. I think I mentioned this in a previous email. You walk past my office door, you might hear voices, multiple voices. I might even go into character as I'm talking to myself. The Scrabble pieces, those are words from my first series of books. Duke, one of my favorite characters, as I mentioned, more book covers, a couple little gnomes. This is very stressful for me because I have one, I have two, and I have none. I don't know where my third gnome went. He is not behind my desk. He is not anywhere I can find. You've heard of sibling rivalry. Well, in my world, it's character rivalry. So I'm scared there may have been some foul play with a George or one of the other gnomes. I'm not sure, but never know. This desk, by the way, was a bed that I bought for my daughter about 14, 15 years ago. And it got to the point no one needed it. We bought it at a garage sale for, I think, $20. It was painted white. I stripped it in the living room of an apartment I was in at the time, stripped it down, turned it into a solid oak bed. That's why I bought it. I could tell it was oak. It didn't have any more purpose. It's a double bed, and I turned it into my desk. This was the headboard down here, this piece. You can see the curves and stuff. Up here, that was part of the footboard. The piece down there in the middle was part of the footboard. These were actually the posts from that are the legs. The whole thing was made out of that bed. There's not a single piece of wood on that desk that didn't come off of the bed. My books up there hanging on fishing line. There's some kitty cats up there, I would call them, although I'm not sure why one of them turned around and is showing me its rear end. I think either demons or something, but I didn't put that there. Duco. Oh, this character over here. So we have Jess over here from The Last Sundancer. This is Ski. Ski is also one of the Last Sundancers and a character in the book. And Ski is actually modeled after a personal friend of mine whose name is Ski, but that's all I'm going to tell you about him. Duco over here, it's my wife. She doesn't mind being on film because she will be on film soon anyways. And this is Duco, the St. Bernard. Yeah, I eat demons. You got a problem with that. Duco's just this incredibly stoic character who really has a taste for demon-fi. The hot air balloon, the dragon, part of the children's series, same with most of these characters. The giraffes out of Lego, the characters in the back. That's actually a picture of Moo back there. I had to rearrange my office recently, and I haven't adjusted that yet. You probably saw that tree over there. Purely decoration, although those were from my wife and I's wedding. We built a full fairy garden to get married into it, and that was part of what was in that tent that we created our garden into. Over here is this would be my writing desk for sure. I like to write standing up because I move a lot, and it's not this quiet. You think of a writer maybe hunched over a keyboard or whatever. I'm like violent, almost. I mean, I'm not really violent, but I'm moving around. I'm back and forth. I'm hitting my head. It's almost a physical workout for me. I do it standing up, one, just because I don't want to stand all that much, but this desk is my focus desk. There's no second screen. There's no anything else. This is focus mode, write, get as many words out as I can, as fast as I can, fix them later type of thing. So, well, you would recognize those as angel wings. Again, if you read the first book, it's sort of the first series, it's paranormal. Similar to the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves. That was a DC Comics character, very much a spiritual warfare book. It's basically urban adventure set in a Christian world at the time. It's because the characters are literally fighting demons and Satan and such. Two more puzzles, just fun. Again, this one, I feel myself getting drawn into it. The one over there, another book opening up to a world. My Kindle, that's a Kindle Scribe. You can handwrite in it. So that's really my travel thing. So I can take books with me to read, but I can also just push a couple buttons or with my pen and open a notebook, and I can scribble out notes real quick. So I might be reading a book about writing or a fiction book, and I'll immediately have some plot idea jump into my head for Last Sundancer. I do a couple taps, I scribble it out, I don't lose it that way. So there you go. That is most of my office. I'll tell you one secret, and this one is the one nobody knows. Nobody's ever, I'm not going to open it, can't do that, but I'm going to tell you. So this desk drawer is a desk drawer, and it is normal for the most part. I'll open it a little bit, lens cleaner, paper clips, normal stuff. But I talked to you in the last email about how I have to be raw to write. I have to feel the emotions that I'm trying to portray, and I feel like I have to feel them at about 120% to write them at 80%, so that you can feel 80% of what I'd like you to feel. I have to feel more as a writer. Robert Frost said this as no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader. I need to feel it. I need to be surprised when I write by what happens, because if I'm surprised, you're going to be surprised. If I'm not surprised while I'm writing something, I'm walking too tight of a path, and you're going to feel that, and you're not going to like it. I have surprised myself so much, I almost lost a notebook throwing it across the room, because when I read back over what I had written, it made me really mad. I was really mad at that character, and I had to slam my book shut, my notebook, and I walked away from writing for a week. I came back a week later, and I opened it, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what the character needed to do. Anyway, in this drawer, in the back corner, buried, I have a couple mementos, and those mementos are hidden because they can't exist in my daily life yet. They're very, very painful. And I will probably need them next week. I'll probably be towards the conclusion of The Last Sundancer Part 2, and I'll need a level of emotion that I can't just think. I can't think myself there. And that's the type of thing. They're there so I can pull them out and I can put myself in pain, that I can get that level of feeling, and then I have to sit there and I have to absorb it, and then I try to write what I'm feeling. What does it feel like? I can't tell you the character's in pain. I have to, whether it's a furrowed brow or a single tear running down the cheek or sweat on the lip, whatever it is, I have to feel it and then look at myself. Honestly, it's like, okay, now what am I doing? Is my hand shaking? What is the physical response to what I'm feeling? Because it's the physical response, not the emotion, that goes in the book. I don't want to tell you what the character's feeling. I want you to feel it. I want you, my character grabs his chest and having a heart attack, I want your hand on the phone thinking you need to dial 911 for yourself. That would be my ultimate goal. One of you wrote me 2 weeks ago during Prologue Wars and said, it's got to be Prologue 1 because when I read it, I cried. And that's the type of comment that means so much to a writer, to even think that we could get somebody to tears is an amazing, just an amazing thing for us to think about. So, anyway, that's The Office. That's it. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'd love your questions. Love your comments. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I should not talk to Lego giraffes or wooden giraffes or little stuffed Sasquatches right there. He says, by the way, adventure awaits, and adventure always awaits when I'm at my desks. There's always something about to happen. This office, 120 square feet. I run 5 businesses out of it. There's one more office that's a production office for the wall arts, but the business end of it all gets run out of this office. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. And let's close it, seal it back up chromatically so nobody else can get it. Anyway, this is Kevin signing off. Keep reading.